I call the March 18th, 2024 meeting of the Legislative Commission on Pensions and Retirement to order. A quorum is present. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes we have from March 11th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve those meeting minutes? Senator Friends. Senator Friends moves that the March 11th, 2024 meeting minutes be approved. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion prevails and the minutes are adopted. Before we move into the first bill, I do just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. I know I probably should have done this starting at the beginning of the session, but I would just like to, remind everyone in the audience that, if there is a seat, please be seated. I know that as we move into sometimes bills that have a lot of people, we have people standing, but we'll make sure to ensure that people have seats to sit in. If you have signs, if you could leave those signs outside, and also for decorum, we don't clap or cheer or boo people who come in front of the commission. And so just want to make sure that those who might be joining us new is aware of that. And then we do try to ensure that people who are here get the chance to testify, and we try to sign people up ahead of time. But when we have time, I will ask to see if members of the public would like to testify as well. And but because we are limited in time, sometimes we do have to limit people's testimony. And so I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of that, and we are all sort of operating under the same ground rules when we're in the commission here. So thank you all very much for giving me the opportunity to do that. So the first bill on our in front of us today is House File 3675 from Representative Wolgamott and Senate File 3822 from Senator Kupec. And this bill provides for unreduced early retirement for our Select Department of Corrections employees with the MSRS General Plan. Welcome to the Commission. And since neither are members of our commission, I will move that House File 3675 and Senate File 38. Oh, I'm so sorry, Representative Wolgamott.
Madam Chair, wow.
My apologies.
Chopped liver over here, Madam Chair.
Representative Wolgamott, would you like to move your bill?
Madam Chair, I move that House File 3675 and Senate File 3822 be laid over.
Thank you, Representative Wolgamott. And would you and Senator Kupec have any opening remarks you'd like to share?
Yes, well, thank you, Madam Chair, and my fellow members of this commission. We are excited to be here today to present House File 3675 and Senate File 3822 to provide an unreduced early retirement annuity to Select Department of Corrections employees. We're bringing this bill forward because, we in the legislature spend a lot of time and resources focused on our correctional facilities. But our community and supervision and probation services, as well as the people in those jobs, are a critical piece of the corrections puzzle. Madam Chair and members, roughly 95% of people currently incarcerated will be released back into the community. This bill proposal, as amended, puts us on a path to recognizing the impact this work has on our workforce. That's why we're bringing this bill forward, and we appreciate your consideration and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Representative Wolgamott. Senator Kupec.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Committee. Minnesota correction agents, more commonly referred to as probation agents, serve a critical function in our criminal justice system. They work with our courts to provide pretrial and post-conviction risk assessment prior to incarceration. Once a person is released from a prison, correction agents are tasked with enforcing the conditions of that individual's release. This type of work puts them in a position of acting as both a case manager, ensuring that they receive therapeutic and rehabilitative treatment, such as a sex offender or substance use programming, or as law enforcement. When the person violates the terms of their release, they must be detained and reincarcerated. However, unlike correctional or law enforcement counterparts who retire with full benefits at age 55, correction agents currently do not qualify for early retirement under MSRS or under PERA. SF 3822 amended would allow corrections agents serving both the DOC and our counties to retire with full benefits once they reach 60 years of age or after 30 years of service. We recognize that the committee currently does not have a budget target yet, but we hope that this bill will help lay the foundation for addressing this issue, as testimony from our agents today will clearly demonstrate the need to extend this important benefit to our state, county, and correction agents.
Thank you, Senator Kupec. And I will now turn to our nonpartisan staff to explain the bill. So LCPR Deputy Director Sean Kelly, if you could go ahead and explain the bill.
Thank you, Chair Herr. I will provide some background on early retirement benefits, summarize the bill, and highlight a couple considerations. Minnesota's public pension plans are designed to pay a full, undiscounted annuity to eligible employees upon reaching normal retirement age. This means that if the employee waits to retire until an age set in statute, the benefit the employee receives is the amount calculated using the plan's benefit formula. The normal retirement age for MSRS General is age 66 for most active employees. If an employee chooses to retire before reaching normal retirement age, the employee's monthly benefit is reduced as provided in statute because the employee is receiving the annuity for a longer period of time. Certain early retirement benefits allow eligible employees to receive a full, unreduced annuity before reaching normal retirement age. The bill provides an early retirement benefit for a specific group of employees covered by MSRS General. The bill, as introduced, has two sections, which are both effective July 1st, 2024. Section 1 prevents an employee's annuity from being reduced by an early retirement reduction if the employee is eligible for an unreduced annuity provided under the bill. Section 2 provides adds a new subdivision to Section 352.116. The subdivision provides an unreduced annuity to an employee if, on the day the employee terminates employment, the employee is employed by the Department of Corrections as a corrections agent responsible for probation or parole services and is at least age 62 or has at least 30 years of service. This benefit, referred to as 62 or 30, is only available to eligible members hired on or after July 1st, 1989. Employees hired prior to that date are eligible for Rule of 90, a different early retirement benefit. The bill does not include an increase in contributions or state aid. Without any funding, the cost of the bill would be absorbed by MSRS General. Under 62 or 30, a corrections agent responsible for probation or parole services could be hired at age 22 or 23, work for 30 years, and retire with full pension benefits at age 52 or 53. No public employee in Minnesota is currently permitted to retire with a full pension benefit prior to age 55. 62 or 30 requires, 62 and 30 requires a member to attain both age and service requirements to be eligible for an unreduced retirement annuity. 62 and 30 still provides an unreduced annuity for career employees at an earlier age, but guarantees that a member will not retire with an annuity prior to age 62. I will also note that the Commission published a study in 2003 after a task force was established to determine the appropriate retirement coverage for post-sentencing officers. At the time, post-sentencing officer was a job classification that included corrections agents working for the Department of Corrections. While the task force did not reach a consensus on what the appropriate retirement coverage should be for post-sentencing officers, the employee representatives proposed being included in MSRS Correctional. MSRS Correctional provides greater benefits to vested employees than is provided by MSRS General, but is also more expensive for employees and employers. In addition to evaluating an early retirement benefit for corrections agents responsible for probation or parole services, the Commission may wish to evaluate if this group of eligible employees should be added to the list of Department of Corrections positions covered by MSRS Correctional. Thank you, Chair Herr. That concludes my review.
Thank you, Deputy Director Kelly. And I do understand that there is a 1A author's amendment. Representative Wolgamott, would you like to move the 1A?
Madam Chair, I would move the adoption of the A1 amendment.
And members, is there any discussion to the 1A amendment? Or Representative Wong, actually, can you explain the 1A amendment, or was that explained in Director Kelly's?
It was not explained in the review. If Representative Wolgamott would, I'm sorry, would you like me to?
Go ahead, Director Kelly. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Deputy Director Kelly.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Herr. Representative Wolgamott. The amendment makes two changes. First, it changes the 62 or 30 early retirement benefit to a 60 or 30 benefit. As a result, a corrections agent responsible for probation or parole services would be eligible to retire with an unreduced annuity upon reaching age 60 or with 30 years of service. The second change is that the amendment also creates a 60 or 30 retirement benefit for members of the PERA General Plan that are employed as corrections agents by adding two new sections to the bill. which mirror sections 1 and 2. The new section 3 prevents the annuity of a member of PERA General from being reduced by an early retirement reduction if the member is eligible for the unreduced annuity provided by a new subdivision, which is added by section 4. And then the new section 4 adds a subdivision in section 353.30, which provides a 60 or 30 benefit for members of PERA General who, on the date the member terminates employment, is employed as a corrections agent responsible for probation or parole services. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions or comments on the 1A author's amendment? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of adopting the 1A author's amendment for House File 3675, Senate File 3822, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay.
No.
The motion is approved and the 1A author's amendment is adopted. So back to the bill as amended. I understand that we do have testifiers here, so why don't we go through all of them and then we can have member questions afterwards. The first person I have on the list here is Erin Leonard, Executive Director of MSRS, and up after her is Katie Merrick, Intensive Supervised Release Agent from a MAPE member. Please identify yourself for the record and begin.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. My name is Erin Leonard. I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota State Retirement System. As described by staff, House File 3675, Senate File 3822 as amended would provide an unreduced retirement benefit to a select group of employees who are currently in the MSRS General Plan at age 60 or 30 years of service. The MSRS Board does not have a formal position on this bill. Historically, if a benefit improvement is provided to members in one of MSRS plans, they're not opposed to changes that benefit all members if it is funded or cost neutral. So 2023 was an example of that, where we were able to provide some benefit enhancements, and those were cost neutral. We do have concerns with this bill from a plan member equity perspective, as well as a technical administration perspective. If the intent is to include staff and supervisors in the correctional agent job classification series, this bill would provide a benefit improvement to a group of approximately 380 employees out of 52,000 active MSRS general members. The bill does not currently include an increase in contributions for this benefit, which means that the other general plan members will be paying the same contribution rate for an unreduced benefit at age 66 as this group with a lower full retirement age. We have not formally estimated the cost of this bill. However, we have had actual estimates prepared to estimate the cost of lowering all of the general plan members' full retirement age to 64 from 66. That cost was 1.79% of pay. Using that as a baseline, I estimate that 62 or 30 is around 4% of pay, and 60 or 30 would be more than that. And this does not consider changes in retirement behavior, which is also a big component to consider. As mentioned in the staff memo, requiring only 30 years of service to be eligible for an unreduced benefit could result in pension in a person retiring before age 55, which is earlier than all Minnesota public pension plans. And then finally, from a technical perspective, the way the bill is written, it's unclear if individuals in this category retire before the age or service requirements, what is their early retirement age, and how are their early retirement factors determined. So in closing, this bill is an outline to provide benefits to a group of employees. And while I appreciate that as policymakers, you may determine that a lower retirement age for this group is appropriate, MSRS believes the following should take place before moving further. A technical review to ensure appropriate administration as intended. Actuarial analysis should be prepared to ensure the benefit is paid for, and the employees and or employers that may benefit from this enhancement should be responsible for the increased costs associated with the change. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Leonard, and you'll likely be called back for questions. Our next person is Katie Merrick, and I'm sorry if I'm saying your last name incorrectly, but if you could identify yourself for the record when you get settled. And the next person after that will be Janine Altman, Ramsey County Probation Officer. Please identify yourself for the record and begin.
Good morning, Chair. I am Katie Merrick. You said it right. And I work as an intensive supervised release and challenge incarceration program agent for the Department of Corrections, here today in my capacity as a MAPE member. And I thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of this bill. As an ISR and CIP agent, I'm responsible for supervising parolees in the community, including those who have committed murders, sex offenses, assaults, and more. ISR CIP supervision is a 24/7 operation, including nights, weekends, holidays, and one of us is always on call. Each day, we put on our badges, our bulletproof vests, and our radios. We are not armed, we typically work alone, and much of our work hours are done before 8 a.m. or after 4:30 p.m. A typical day entails conducting unannounced home visits, transporting high-risk parolees from prison without a cage or handcuffs in our vehicles, issuing warrants, administering random drug tests, and attending revocation hearings. We enter people's homes who have severe mental illnesses, who are actively using drugs, and who are known to be violent. We never know the challenges we are going to face in a day or what we might walk into. Some of the risks I frequently encounter include waiting hours after requesting law enforcement assistance when a warrant is issued during a routine home visit, which leaves me with the choices of waiting with the parolee until law enforcement arrives or transporting the parolee myself to jail. I have confiscated numerous guns, weapons, and pounds of various narcotics from residences, which were likely inside the home during several other visits conducted by myself or my partners. This is a very demanding job, and there is an underlying stress that is present each day. I work in neighborhoods where I hear gunshots during each shift, and my head is constantly on a swivel. A person was shot in a client's yard less than 2 minutes after I left the visit. I've sat through sex offender treatment where I hear in detail some of the most heinous crimes and process how I can attempt to prevent them from reoccurring. I have to live with the fact that I believed a parolee was using drugs again, but before I could give her a drug test, which I had planned to do the following day, I received a phone call that night discovering she crashed a car into the median with her 3-year-old child in the vehicle, having overdosed on fentanyl. I've conducted numerous home visits with the client to later see him on the news having kidnapped and murdered a female who was my age. I am also currently supervising an extreme high-risk client for another unit because they assaulted their former ISR agent. And this is just a small fraction of the dangers and stress we face in this job. Not all parts of being a corrections agent are negative. We help people every single day. We help them find employment and housing of their own, often for the first time, enter and complete treatment programs, help them prep for job interviews, find support networks, fill out college applications, and align them with services to be overall successful in life. The best accomplishment of an agent can see is a parolee success story. As agents, we walk the line between corrections case management and law enforcement duties, both of which are offered retirement at age of 55. They are rightfully provided these benefits due to the greater levels of risk, danger, and stress in their daily professions, and the shortened life expectancy due to the damage the stress can leave. Despite the similarities in our jobs, we do not have access to comparable benefits. Personally, I would have 49.5 years of service with my department before I'm eligible for retirement, and many of my coworkers would have around 40 years in. I ask for your assistance in passing this bill that would support the health and well-being of not only myself, but all the other heroes known as corrections agents, which would allow us to retire at age 60 or after 30 years of service. And I am also happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Merrick, and thank you for sharing what it's like to be in your job, and appreciate your service and continuing to stay in this work. Our next individual, our next testifier is Janine Altman, and after that is Jim Hawkins. If you can make your way up to the testifiers table. It's fine. Please identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Good morning, Madam Chair and representatives of this committee. Thank you for this time to speak with you and for the work you do for our state. My name is Jim Hawkins. I've been a Ramsey County probation officer for 28 years. Inspired by my mother, I always knew I wanted to help people struggling with tough life circumstances. Probation is where I found this calling. I spent the majority of my career working with juveniles and their families. This work has been both meaningful and hard. Probation or parole is probably the least known area of the criminal justice system. We are just not very visible in the same way as a police officer, judge, or those working in correctional facilities. But we are there, always working behind the scenes for the safety of our Minnesota communities. As I speak to you this Monday morning, there are probation officers across Minnesota preparing to go to court, to offer guidance to judges on how best to respond to tragic offenses involving shootings, carjackings, domestic assaults, homicides, and more. Other POs are off today because they spent this weekend checking on clients in their homes and making sure known risk behaviors were not getting started again. Still, other POs are back at their office, continuing to work on pre-sentence investigation reports involving burglaries and sexual abuse of children. Others are heading out to visit and help clients in their homes, jobs, schools, and correctional facilities. Some are on the phone with assault victims, and there are probably plenty who are in the office talking to fellow POs right now, trying to figure out what's actually causing their clients' issues and harmful behavior and what to do about it. The best part of my job as a PO is partnering with clients and witnessing them make meaningful changes in their lives, and knowing that's helping our community. But today, and for the purposes of understanding why this pension change makes sense, I need to share more with you about what the other side of this probation work is. It is hard, heavy, scary at times, and it takes a toll on those of us who do it. We POs put ourselves in harm's way in the hopes of preventing harm in our Minnesota communities. We work with people who have histories of violence and a whole host of other challenges. We are constantly in situations that can turn into a physical danger in a split second. And this is further complicated by the fact that our job requires us at times to recommend people lose their freedom. Bulletproof vests, radio coordination with police, badges, pepper spray, yearly safety training, and a standing committee to handle safety incidents are tools of our job. Home visits are conducted in pairs, with one person designated as the contact person for the client and the other constantly scanning the environment for safety concerns. Code words are used to indicate, "Get out now." We are not armed. Just a couple of years ago, while on a routine home visit that he would do on a daily basis, my longtime colleague found himself in the middle of a drive-by shooting while still in his car. A few bullets struck his car, and one of them passed right through his headrest as he ducked. Every PO I work with was impacted by that. The safety concerns don't end when our workday ends. I can tell you my wife and I established a code word for when we are out in public settings. If we are at the state fair or the mall, and I see a current or past client that may pose a danger, she knows to immediately take the kids and disappear. Still, other POs have had to deal with name changes for safety reasons. Then there's the mental and emotional toll that probation work takes on us due to the constant immersion in caustic situations and caustic material over decades. This is often known as burnout, compassion fatigue, secondary trauma, PTSD, and so on. At this point in my career, I've read thousands of reports involving horrific things happening to people. I've had innumerable interactions with confrontational people and been on the receiving end of a lot of anger, yelling, accusations, threats, spit, and even been swung at. This takes a toll on us as human beings. Minnesota police officers and correctional facility staff are recognized for the toll their work takes. This is done through their pensions. We POs do not have the same experience as they do, but we are without a doubt immersed in it in a very significant way. Many nearby states, including Illinois, Wisconsin, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas, also recognize this in their pensions for POs. We POs requesting this pension change, like police officers and correctional facility staff, are not trying to get rich. We are asking you to recognize we've been on the front lines of traumatic work for decades of our career and need to step back for our own health and to keep our system healthy for the community and clients we serve. We need to help the people who help the people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Up next is Janine Altman, and after that, Doug Anderson with Executive Director of PERA. Please identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Good morning, Madam Chair and representatives for the committee. My name is Janine Altman. and with Ramsey County Probation, and I've been a PO for about 24 years. The first 10 were in juvenile probation. The last 14 years have been in adult probation, specifically in the domestic abuse unit. I can honestly say I never had dreams of becoming a PO, but here I am. I have a master's degree in education, and I am bilingual in Spanish, and I found my calling in corrections 24 years ago. Who we are. We are on the continuum of law enforcement and correctional officers, and that we have a badge and a bulletproof safety vest, but we may actually play the most critical role in criminal justice when it comes to rehabilitation. That may sound fairly simple, but it's quite the opposite. All of the news you see, read about entailing carjackings, homicides, domestic violence, sex crimes, those are the people we are required to meet with, not for months, but years. When they are released to our communities, they are assigned to a PO or parole agent. Many of those individuals have experienced past trauma, mental illness, poverty, drug addiction, homelessness. As agents, we have to balance their needs while also protecting victims and the community. Due to the instability in our clients' lives, agents have to be prepared for any given situation to become volatile, much like law enforcement who work with the exact same individuals. Most days begin by determining which fire to put out. Who do we respond to first? Is it the victim in fear who was assaulted again? The client who overdosed but survived overnight? Or the detective who reports my client may be involved in a homicide? And interestingly, I was just in his home. All of these situations are equally important and deserve action, yet present safety risks to the PO and parole officer. Similar to law enforcement, we never know what the next crisis is. For example, I received a call last Thursday from a victim that her boyfriend, who is my client, was assaulting her. She was screaming into the phone, their 2-year-old was crying, and the client could also be heard yelling. It all sounded very physical. It was chaotic trying to defuse the situation and get her to hear me telling her to call police or see if she could. Sometimes I am the one who has to call. She did call police and left by ambulance. She called me from the ambulance. In essence, I don't just monitor court-ordered conditions. I was thankful I was not conducting a home visit that day, but I had just been there and spoken to them both. The domino effect is I had contact with police after that call, victim advocates, victim follow-up, and the client then calling from jail begging to get out. I had been working with this individual on his past trauma, and I'll continue to do so, but it's a long road. On a different note, earlier that week, I got a call from a client on supervision with me 9 years ago. She said thank you and that I had changed her life. She called me amazing. Haven't heard that one in a long time. She never got into trouble again and wanted me to know. In fact, she was applying for a job in her child's school district. This is why we do this job. We want all Minnesotans to do well and be productive in their communities. But oftentimes it comes at the cost of our mental health, the emotional and physical demands of this job. Over time, it's the absorption of traumatic events that we hear day after day, year after year, that eventually take a negative toll. This is the darker side of the profession, also known as secondary trauma. Whether you're a newer agent or a veteran one, many of us experience painful memories, flashbacks, stressful dreams, emotional irritability, and definitely lack of sleep. I can't imagine all the secondary and vicarious trauma, potential PTSD we would endure by the age of 66 and how that would translate to our personal lives. We would also lose the connection with clients and potentially the quality of service and safety as a 66-year-old knocking at your door. We are the only entity in this continuum that does not have an early retirement benefit. I'm here to urge all of you to consider adopting an early retirement plan for probation and parole agents in Minnesota. This bill would also incentivize young people considering a career in corrections. In recent years, we have seen a steady decline in applicants and retention of good employees. Our neighboring states already recognize this need and have adopted early retirement for their probation and parole staff. Thank you as well for all the hard work you do and for listening to us today.
Thank you, Ms. Altman. And maybe if I could have Amy Strange come up with Doug Anderson at the same time, too. I don't know if you both are testifying separately or to, okay. Excuse me. If you could identify yourself for the record and begin.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commission members. I'm Doug Anderson, Executive Director for PERA. And Amy Stragey, our policy coordinator, is available for questions if we have them. The PERA board does not have a position as this amendment first came to our attention on Friday evening. The board appreciates being able to consider and evaluate opportunities that modify plans to help with recruitment, retention, and improving retirement security, and definitely recognize that discussion of earlier unreduced benefits for some groups is appropriate. However, the board seeks to ensure that all questions are answered and concerns are addressed before taking a position of support. Would agree with all of Ms. Leonard's comments about MSRs as they also transfer over to PERA, all the concerns that she raised. Concerns specific to PERA relate to the costs, which we had some estimates done before. There was a study done many years ago, about 15 years ago, that was helpful for some discussion. I did speak with our actuary about estimating what this cost would be. We talked about the rough estimate of this total cost being close to $100 million with a per payroll cost in excess of 4% of pay. And we certainly defer to an updated study to update those numbers. So the concern is overall costs, but also how the cost and the value can vary dramatically differently within this group. So members, while the overall present value of the benefit that would apply to these members is about $100,000 per member, it would be very different and more valuable to members that are close to retirement. So a member who's 55, who's had 30 years in, the value of benefit to them would be estimated to be $200,000 to $300,000. It's very different for the newer member. So there's just questions about equity within that group when you talk about what kind of cost is assessed, who pays, how much. So we have concerns of overall costs and also just equity within members of this group. In addition to this, the board would like to know and resolve questions related to what changes in member behavior we would see. Would there be significant, more immediate retirements? Would termination rates be lower? These are questions that impact cost estimates. So we'd like to have more engagement to make sure that we're having reasonable cost estimates. We'd have concerns about equitability among all the general plan members. So this is one group within a larger group. So we'd want there to be fairness among all those groups. This would essentially create a plan within a plan. And I think most importantly is once establishing the cost, the question of who pays, how much, and how long would want to be resolved. So PERA thinks this is a good discussion to have. We want to be involved with further engagement, further discussion to resolve all these questions, which would be needed before PERA could provide its support.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. And in the interest of time, because we have 4 more other bills after this, this is where I would normally ask if there are members of the public who'd like to testify. If somebody is here and you could say something really quickly that you wanted to say, I may be able to let 1 or 2 people, but if not, I'm going to move to member questions. Okay. With that, I will go ahead and move to member questions. I see Senator Rasmusson first. If you want to go ahead, Senator Rasmusson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess a question for the bill authors on this. Instead of creating a separate class within the general plans, was there any thought or conversation around potentially looking at this class and having them move into the corrections plan for MSRS?
Representative Wolgamott or Senator Kupec?
Yeah. I think we have a testifier who can shed some light onto that question, Madam Chair.
Please identify yourself for the record, and you can respond to Senator Rasmusson.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. For the record, my name is Devin Bruce. I'm the Legislative Director for the Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, MAPE. To your question, Senator Rasmussen, we did look at several ways to try and include this in the correctional plan. Just to give you a little bit of oversight on at least in my expertise for the MSR's general plan, there's two methods in which you can place this series in there. One is under subdivision 1 of 352.91, and that would just be straight inclusion. The other piece would be 352.91 subdivision 3D, which you've heard testimony previously on the additional correctional employee plans, job classes, and adding those. We would have to amend that statute to remove the 75% offender contact requirement, and also change the definition, because currently it says inmate. And so that would be the hurdle that you'd have to do, and it would open it up to almost anybody, and that would blow the plan up. We haven't been prepared to have those discussions, so if you imagine that this is costly, that would be even more. The other piece is that the employer contribution levels would have to be included, and therefore we'd have to have a budget target, because currently for MSRS correctional plan, it's 14.4%. That's 8% higher than the current employer contribution level. For the PERA general, it's the difference between that and the PERA correctional, it's about 2.5% difference. So we would have to somehow find money to supplement that. And currently, we would love nothing more than to just put them in the CERT plan. They would have the full retirement benefits plus the health benefits that come with CERT and retire at full age at 55. But we don't have the money at this point. So if that's an option on the table, we would certainly take it. And if this committee comes up with the budget target that would help supplement that, we would be most appreciative.
Senator Rasmusson. Any further? Okay. Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering if Assistant Director or Deputy Director Kelly could once again talk a little bit about how the 60 and or 30 provision would work, and the fact that we don't have other bargaining groups or individuals in pension-covered service that can retire in full benefit before age 55. Once again, how would this work if I was 22, coming out of college, went to work for corrections? I would have my 30 years at age 52, which would be 3 years younger than what we've caused law enforcement to go. If I understand this correctly, a few years ago, we told law enforcement that they have to go from 50 to 55. Now we're taking corrections workers down from 66 to 52. I suspect soon we'll be hearing from the folks in law enforcement and police and fire saying, whoa, 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 whoa. So am I interpreting that correctly?
Deputy Director Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Representative O'Driscoll. So yes, the difference between the 62 or 30 and the 62 and 30 is that under 62 or 30, you only need to meet one of those two requirements, the age or the service component. Whereas 62 and 30, you need to meet both the age and the service components. For MSRS General, a member is able to make an application for retirement annuity at age 55, but can do so at any age with 30 years of service. I am not currently aware of the requirement for PERA, if there's like a similar 30-year. I do know that typically it is the early retirement age where a member could submit an application and receive a retirement benefit, although reduced currently, is age 55. But yes, that is the difference between the 62 or 30 versus the 62 and 30.
Representative O'Driscoll.
And then to that point, I'm reading this and it looks like it's an immediate change of benefits. And as Executive Director Leonard had said that there would be a rather large impact on the fund, which means that those who are drawing benefits, those who will be drawing benefits, and those who are continuing to pay in will feel pressure on the fund and its percent of full funding on here. And so members, I think we need to consider that if we are interested in adjusting the benefits. And then to the bill authors, the bill is effective July 1st of 2024. And in testimony that we've heard today, I'm anticipating that there might be a large exodus from the probation category of officials and public servants. And we also heard that there's currently a gap in there. How are you anticipating covering that gap if we have a large number of members who immediately become eligible for a higher pension benefit that will be effective in about 90 days?
Representative Wolgamott or Senator Kupec? Mr. Bruce?
Thank you, Madam
Madam Chair, I
Chair.
was looking for the bill authors also to comment on if they could.
Why don't we go ahead and let Mr. Bruce go, and then we'll have the two authors, one of them respond. Mr. Bruce?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Representative Driscoll. Currently, the average age for MSR's general corrections agent is 43. The average years of service is 12. And that's because they don't have this benefit. A lot of them will transfer over to become case managers so that they can qualify for CERP.
The authors of the bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Driscoll. I have nothing further to add from Mr. Bruce's comments.
Thank you. And Senator Frantz?
Well, Madam Chair, our intention is to lay this over, right?
That is correct.
Appreciate that. I think we need a little more conversation here, and to the bill authors, thank you very much for your hard work on this. We want to support working men and women. The testimony is compelling about the conditions of the job. I think the questions about equity amongst our plan participants probably needs a little more chat. And Mr. Bruce, you mentioned the targets. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Any
Madam
further
Chair.
discussion? I do just want to direct the public and our members to that we do have a letter of support from MNCORA and letter from Association of Minnesota Counties and Minnesota Intercounty Associations. No, this is the same one. Oh. My apologies, that will be for another bill. So, well, I'm not doing well in this particular bill, Representative Wolgamott. Let's see here. I want to go ahead and, seeing that, let me just make sure that there's any further discussion or questions for Ms. Leonard. Okay, with that, there is no further discussion. Representative Wolgamott or Senator Kupec, would you please offer your closing remarks?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the commission for the opportunity to present this bill. As Senator French mentioned, we are looking forward to putting in the work with all of you and with all of the different entities involved in this to working out the numbers. And ultimately, we want to have the backs of the men and women who show up every day on the front lines of public safety and rehabilitation in our communities. We want to have the backs of our probation and parole officers. That's why I look forward to working with each of you to make sure that we can get this bill over the finish line. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members.
Thank you. Would you like to renew your motion to Senator Kupec?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to add on to that. So growing up, my father was a corrections officer in a different state, and they had retirement after 20 years of service. And so to me, when they brought this forward to me, to know what kind of conditions that these people are going into, and to be doing that at, into your 60s, seems like it's probably a difficult situation. So I think any way that we can find to lower that retirement age for these folks would be beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, at this point, I will renew my motion.
Thank you. And Representative Wolgamott renews his motion, the House File 3675, Senate File 3822, as amended, be laid over. Thank you. The bill is laid over. The next bill on our agenda is House File 4081 for Representative Stephenson and Senate File 4092 from Senator Gustafson, and it relates to adjusting the PERA Correctional Plan Benefit Multiplier. Link forward. Sure. And because Senator Gustafson and Representative Stephenson are not members of our commission, unlike Representative Wolgamott, who was, I will move to lay over House File 4081 and Senate File 4092. Representative Stephenson and Senator Gustafson, would you like to offer some opening comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Pleased to bring before you this bill today, which relates to the correctional plan. Members might know that when the legislature is not in session, I work as a prosecutor in Hennepin County and interact very frequently with detention deputies in that capacity. It's a really difficult, demanding job. I think you're going to hear a little later from the Anoka County Sheriff, who can speak to that as well. As a consequence of the heavy toll that that job takes on the people who do it, a lot of people don't stay in that job for a very long time, which obviously creates problems when you want to have a highly skilled and experienced workforce. This is even revealed in the data we have about the correctional plan. I had a great meeting a couple weeks ago with PERA staff who showed me data showing that the number of active participants in this plan is not quite as large as the number of people who have previously vested and have gone on to other careers. They've left, they've moved on. The idea behind this bill is to try and give people an incentive to stay in the field of being a detention deputy for a longer period of time, which will benefit everyone involved in the criminal justice system. So it increases the multiplier from 1.9 to 2.2% and is funded by increasing both the employer and employee contributions. I know that you have a letter in your packet of support from MNCORA. I will also say that the MPPOA is in support of this provision. I do know that the counties associations are not supportive at this time. I think they're trying to look at a broader discussion about the various proposals related to the pensions, and particularly the correctional pension plan. I think they do recognize the need to do something to improve retention of detention deputies. And so I'm glad the bill's being laid over today because it'll allow for that conversation to continue and allow for all of these proposals to be considered in their totality. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Stephenson. Senator Gustafson.
Thank you, and thank you to the committee for hearing this today. Shortly after taking this job, I met with Sheriff Wise and asked how I could support him and his department. He was working on a pension plan that would help with recruitment and retention of correctional officers. Last session, I was fortunate enough to also spend quite a bit of time with the corrections officers who work at the prison in my district, Lino Lakes. They echoed the same concerns as Sheriff Wise. Sheriff Wise will testify soon, and I urge you to listen to what he has to say. He represents Anoka County well, and his perspective is both valued and needed as you make your decision today. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Senator Gustafson. And what I will do now is move over to our LCPR staff, Deputy Director Kelly, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Chair Herr. I believe the bill authors did a great job providing an overview for the bill. With the sake of time and your permission, Chair Herr, I might turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Deputy Director Kelly. Then I want to move to testifiers for the bill, and we will have, and I don't know if Mr. Doug Anderson and Amy Strange are testifying together or just one of you. Okay. Mr. Anderson, if you can identify yourself for the record.
Doug Anderson, Executive Director for PERA, and Amy Strange, our Policy Coordinator, is available for questions if we have them. The PERA Board of Trustees met on Thursday. The board discussed that improving the benefit multiplier for this plan is reasonable as long as those responsible, which are the employers and the employees, agree to fully fund the cost. PERA staff confirmed that the proposed increase of 2.5% split 1% for employees, 1.5% for employers is a reasonable estimate of the cost of the multiplier increase. This is for future service only, so not having it tied to past service resolves some equity concerns. The Association of Minnesota Counties and the Minnesota Inter-County Association submitted a letter to the PERA board that at this time they are not supportive of the proposed plan enhancement. The PERA Board of Trustees does not support the bill because employers and employees are not at this time in agreement on financially supporting the change. If a funding agreement were to occur, the board's concern would be addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. And our next testifier is Anoka County Sheriff Brad Wise. Please identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, Commission members. My name is Brad Wise. I work as the elected sheriff of Anoka County. Thank you for hearing the testimony related to this very important bill. The purpose, of course, you heard the math is to move the multiplier from 1.9 to 2.2. You should know that that refers only to PERA employees, which means county employees. And that number isn't an arbitrary number. That number actually reflects what the MSRS, the state plan, is for their correctional employees. So it puts the two plans in an equity position in the event that you work for the county as opposed to you work for the state. That said, the expectations placed on correctional officers in 2024 is much higher than it used to be. When I first started in law enforcement 30 years ago, being a correctional deputy was seen as a path to a licensed law enforcement position. As you know, a licensed peace officer retirement plan is a 3% multiplier times years of service with full retirement occurring at 55. That can't be the case anymore, meaning I can't have correctional officers that aspire to be law enforcement officers on the street. What I need is correctional officers that aspire to be career correction officers. They're expected to deal with people who are suffering from mental illness. As you well know, last year there was a lot of debate within the legislature regarding the lack of beds for treatment centers for those experiencing mental health crises. They're in the jail. They're being interacted with daily as we encourage our correctional deputies to build relationships with those that are incarcerated for the sake of them being better when they leave than when they arrived. There also is violence. The assaults that are happening on correctional officers is regular. There's people that are dealing with addiction. The fentanyl scourge is deeply rooted within the culture of a correctional facility, of every correctional facility, and frankly, we got to do more about this. But the long story short is that what I need is smart, caring, compassionate, empathetic people to show up and apply and interview to become correctional officers, and for them to step foot in that role and say that they are committed to making it a career as they look at building relationships. And you know, I heard great testimony related to the probation and parole officers. We want to make sure that we're handing these people off when they leave the correctional facility as best as we possibly can so that we have great outcomes. So with that, I'm available for any question.
Thank you, Sheriff Wise. Members, are there any questions to the bill? Representative Nadeau.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Stephenson, for bringing this. I think this is moving in the right direction. I do have a question for the sheriff, though. Can you talk a little bit about the differences in salary regarding correctional officers and sworn deputies? The percentage of sworn deputies that are actually in corrections jobs, and how that might play in the overall cost of this. And the reason I'm asking is that I think you're right. In doing this, it's gonna help corrections and detention deputies stay longer in the job. But I'm not sure if it's the only. I'm not sure if it's the only thing, and if it will ultimately solve the problem that you're trying to solve because of the salary differences. So can you just spend a little bit of time talking about that?
Sheriff Wise.
Madam Chair, I guess I'll have to give an anecdotal number. I would estimate probably that a correctional deputy earns something along the lines of 80% of what a licensed deputy would earn. So yes, there would be a wage increase if one transitioned from one career to the other. That said, this to me is just one essential step that we can take, in that when you see that the state correctional plan uses a multiplier of 2.2, while we'll say county correctional officers have a multiplier of 1.9, it's kind of an inherent equity position. And the reality is that once people start working in a correctional environment, many come to love it. Maybe that's not intuitive to you all, but they do. And they want to stay and build a career in there. And it would be great as if they could build a career without thinking of some sort of financial incentive, that they say, you know what, the financial incentive of remaining where I'm at is a good one. That said, is that full retirement is 55, and I did want to comment on that, which is as it should be. All of this, whether it's working in a correction setting or out on the street, is a young person's game, because their violence does occur regularly within the jail. And they have to be physically and mentally prepared to deal with some of that violence. And so we got to be targeted with that 55 retirement. And I'm not sure if I answered every aspect of your question here, but you're asking me a really complicated question when you talk about the compensation differences. But what we're just looking to do is I got to have those 24-year-olds that start in a jail and think, I can make a career out of this, and that becomes their plan, rather than them showing up to work thinking, how do I get out of here, or where do I find my next career?
Representative Nadeau, any follow-up? Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, Representative Stephenson, Senator Gustafson, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just think we'll continue to work with the stakeholders on this and trust that the commission will consider it for inclusion later on. I appreciate the hearing.
Thank you. Senator Gustafson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nothing more to add, just thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. And this is the bill, as Representative Stephenson stated, that MNCOR sent a letter of support, and there's a letter from the Association of Minnesota Counties and Minnesota Intercounty Association, also in your materials and your information. So seeing that there are no further discussions and we've heard concluding remarks, thank you, members. I will renew my motion to lay over House File 4081 and Senate File 4092. This bill is laid over. Thank you so much. The next bill is from Representative Nadeau and Senator Pappas, extending the suspension of the earnings limitation for retired teachers who return to teaching. I will invite Representative Nadeau and Senator Pappas, who are on this commission, to move their bill. Representative Nadeau or Senator Pappas, if you could go ahead and move your bill and tell us a little bit about it. I move the bill?
I'll move the bill, and we're laying it over, right?
Yes.
Yes, I move that we lay over this bill for the pensions omnibus bill.
1 second, Representative Nadeau. Actually, Representative Doe, we are not laying this bill over. And so what I'll do is I will actually move the House File 4933. Is this the right one, right? Apologies, we have a lot of bills today. All right, I will move that House File 4933 and Senate File 4968 be recommended to pass and be incorporated into the Omnibus Pension and Retirement Bill. So with that, if the two of you want to offer your opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That means we're not controversial.
That is correct.
At this point. Really, the purpose of the bill, and I'm sure our testifiers will talk to that, is so that we can retain teachers who have retired and might want to come back to work and not have the earnings penalty. So statute generally permits TRA annuitants to return to covered employment while receiving their pension. But reemployed annuitants do not earn additional service credit or pay into TRA. Those who return before their Social Security normal retirement age are subject to an annual earnings limitation of $46,000. So we passed legislation in 2022 that suspended this earnings limitation for retirees returning to their pre-K to grade 12 jobs for fiscal year 22, 23, and 24. This legislation would extend that suspension for fiscal years 25, 26, and 27, so another 3 years. The St. Paul Teachers Retirement Fund Association was included in the 22 legislation. This bill would do the same for those teachers, creating consistency across the two pension systems and district boundaries. So as I mentioned, doing so helps school districts fill roles during the ongoing teacher shortage. Just for your information, in fiscal year 2023, TRA had 4,144 reemployed annuitants. Of those, 1,841, or 44%, were under their Social Security normal retirement age, meaning that without the suspension, they may have been subject to an earnings limitation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Pappas. And Representative Doe, did you have any opening remarks?
No, I think that was perfectly done. Thank you.
That was. And because it was so perfectly done, we won't even need LCP as our staff to actually go over the details of the bill. So I'm going to move directly to the testifiers for today. So if I could have Holly Dayton, Legislative Liaison for TRA, come on up, and after that will be Phil Tensick, Executive Director and CIO of St. Paul Teachers. And because we have two more bills after this, if you could all just maybe speak quickly, that would be helpful.
Good morning, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Holly Dayton. I'm the Legislative Liaison for TRA. I concur with everything that was said, excuse me, and I'm here to answer if there are any questions, but that's all that I need to do.
Thank you, Ms. Dayton.
Thank you very much, and thank you to our bill authors.
Next is Phil Tensick, and after that will be Caitlin Snyder, lobbyist for Education Minnesota. Mr. Tensick, please go ahead and identify yourself.
Thank you, Chair Herr, members of the commission. I also would like to thank our bill authors and staff for putting together this legislation. I'd like to thank TRA and Ms. Dayton for coordinating with us. SBTRFA would be supportive of this bill. De minimis cost impact with only 5 teachers subject to the suspension currently, and think that could be offset by administrative savings since it does take quite a bit of work to coordinate with these members. And once again, reiterate the comments by the authors and Ms. Dayton as well.
Thank you, Mr. Tensick. And Caitlin Snyder, Education Minnesota.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the commission. My name is Caitlin Snyder. I am a lobbyist with Education Minnesota. We represent 86,000 members, including aspiring teachers, current educators, and retirees. On behalf of our members, we'd like to thank the commission for hearing this bill and support its movement today. A number of our retirees continue to sub after retiring, and this is to supplement their income. It's to continue their service in the classrooms. This obviously benefits themselves as well as their students, the schools that are facing a teacher shortage, and their colleagues that might need to take a sick day to take care of a loved one or to recover from sickness themselves. I really appreciated hearing the number of folks that this applies to in St. Paul TRA. I was hoping to hear that information from TRA as well. But from the anecdotes that come across my desk, this is the equivalent of drops in the ocean. So we appreciate the work happening here. There's a drought when it comes to teacher shortage. Every little bit helps, but I'm hoping to have further conversations with the commission about bold legislation to increase compensation for teachers and improve their working conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any testifiers who are here, anyone else who is in the audience who would like to testify on this bill? If not, we will go ahead and move to member questions. Members, any questions? Seeing that there are no member questions, then Senator Pappas and Representative Nadeau, if you want to offer some closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commission. This is the work that was done in 2002, extended with this, if we pass it today, is actually helping teachers, it's helping schools fill that gap. There's really no cost, and there's incentives for teachers to do this. So I recommend that we vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will renew my motion that House File 4933 and Senate File 4968 be recommended to pass and be incorporated into the Omnibus Pension and Retirement Bill. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The House File 4933, Senate File 4968 is recommended to pass and will be incorporated into the Omnibus Pension and Retirement Bill. Our next bill is a bill related to federal compliance for the PERA Defined Contribution Plans from Representative O'Driscoll and Senator Westlin. And Senator Westlin and Representative O'Driscoll, do you want to move your bill?
Yep, Senator West and I were both talking, since we know that the House file has been introduced and does have a House file number, we'll move House File 4899 and the Senate version to follow on that. So fortunately, we have both of these introduced, and the reason we're moving the House file is the amendment that's desired is coded to the House file as well. So it'll just help with record keeping and bookkeeping on that, Madam Chair. I'm assuming that we want to lay this over for possible inclusion, or we want to put it in the omnibus bill. Okay, then I move that House File 4899 be recommended to pass and adopted for the 2024 pensions and retirements omnibus bill.
Thank you, Representative O'Driscoll. And what I can do is, why don't we move the 1A author's amendment and then let the two of you do your opening remarks? Would that be okay?
That's fine, Madam Chair. I will move the A1 amendment to House File 4899 and recommend its adoption.
And would you like to explain this A1 amendment, or should we have staff do that?
What I'd like to do is I'd like to just get the bill in the form we are, and then we can talk about it so that everybody's working off the same script, so that we're not talking old language and then new languages, so we can get kind of crossed up at times on that, Madam Chair, if that's okay.
That is perfectly fine. All those in favor of adopting the 1A author's amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. The 1A author's amendment is adopted, and onto the bill as it is, onto the language as it is amended. Representative O'Driscoll and Senator Weston.
Madam Chair, since I was taking care of the technical stuff, I'll defer to Senator Weston to background on the bill if she is so inclined. Otherwise, we'll bring the executive director up and they can talk about their 2024 corrections bill from PERA.
Thank you so much. Senator Westlin.
Very briefly, my understanding is this is simply something to bring us into compliance with federal law, and I would let our testifiers elucidate us further.
And before I bring up the testifier, I will just turn it over to LCPR staff just to talk about the bill briefly and the amendment, just so that we all sort of understand what we'll be discussing today. Director Lincheski.
Good morning. My name is Susan Lincheski. I'm the Executive Director of the Commission. This bill amends chapters in 353 and 353D that govern the PERA General Plan and the PERA Defined Contribution Plan. As noted, these sections need to be amended because they may be viewed under federal law as including an impermissible cash or deferred arrangement, also known as a CODA, also known to most of us as a 401k. Governmental plans are not permitted to have a 401k arrangement unless the plan adopted the 401k before May 6, 1986. None of our public pension or retirement plans adopted a plan before that date, so they are not now able to include a CODA, and they can't add a CODA either. The CODA in this case involves primarily the defined contribution plan. I'm going to summarize my comments very, very quickly here, but the plan allows, say, city managers to elect into the plan. So when you elect into the plan, then you start making employee contributions. That is a CODA. That is not permitted. The other thing the plan allows is revocation of that election in. That too is a CODA because it changes the amount that's being withheld from employee paychecks to zero. That is an impermissible CODA. One other thing that is done in Chapter 353 related to the PERA General Plan is city managers can and local government officials can actually elect not to be in the PERA General Plan, in which case they'd be in the Defined Contribution Plan. Electing out of PERA General, that is also an impermissible CODA. So what the bill does is it revises all the statutes in those two chapters that relate to the election in, so that, and I should note that there is a allowance under the code to, and really under IRS regulations, to do an election in within a very short period of time after starting employment. So we're changing a 6-month election period in all cases, or a anytime election, down to 30 days after starting employment. The second change is to take out any ability to revoke your election. And that, I think, is a very quick summary of the bill.
Thank you, Director Lincheski. So why don't we go ahead and move to our testifiers. I have Doug Anderson from PERA. Oh, this time it is Ms. Stringy. Please identify yourself for the record and begin.
Chair Herr, my name is Amy String. I'm the policy coordinator for PERA. Susan did a great walkthrough, but essentially PERA had our tax council ice mailer review our defined contribution plan for federal compliance issues, and they did find this CODA issue, as Susan discussed. The bill incorporates the required updates to our statute to also reflect the Secure Act 2.0 changes that occurred, and then to take care of this CODA issue that we have.
Thank you, Ms. Stringy. Are there any other testifiers here today who would like to testify on this bill? If not, we'll go ahead and move to member questions. Members, do you have any questions regarding the bill as amended? Senator Friends.
No question, Madam Chair, but I want to thank you and thank the bill authors, because you always wonder how this kind of thing prevents much bigger headaches down the line. And while we don't expect trouble when we're out of compliance, and I don't want to make any jokes about the federal government, their watchdog effect, but thank you. For all we know, you may have saved a major problem down the line, and maybe not that far down the line either. So appreciate that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Friends. And Senator Nelson.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. My question is not exactly about this piece of legislation, but maybe one of our advisors could speak to why. I'm just curious why the federal government adopted these type of not allowing these type of things, like a 401k example, for example. What was is there someone, maybe Ms. Lincheski, do you have any insight into the federal government? That's quite a big ask, I know, but I am just curious what might be a possible rationale
Director Lincheski.
for this federal new guidance or requirement.
Director Lynchesky.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Nelson and Chair Herr. This has been around actually for a long time. I'm not sure how we put this into our statutes to allow for this, but it's really in the weeds. This is IRS guidance. It's not even explicitly in the code. So this is something that's been around for some time. I don't know why the federal government, Congress decided that public, pension plans shouldn't be able to do this, to have a 401k plan, but they grandfathered old 401ks, but they aren't allowing new 401ks. I'm not sure why, what the reason is.
Senator Nelson.
And then just a follow-up question. So moving into what is guidance now, how will this impact our plan holders? And are there any negative consequences?
Director Lynchesky.
Well, I could turn this over, I think, to Ms. Strengy, but my guess is that there will be a number of local government officials and city managers who will now very quickly have to make an election as to whether they want to be in the plan, whether they want to be in or out of the general plan, as well as in the defined contribution plan. There is a session law within the bill that allows for this election, and it needs to be done in the month of August. So I think PERA will have a communication task here to get the word out and get these elections into or out of. And Ms. Stringy may be able to add to that.
Ms. Stringy.
Madam Chair, so what this means for PERA is, one, our plan, our defined contribution plan is in federal compliance, which is the goal here. We need to have that. And it does mean some changes for our members in terms of those that thought that they had some more time for an election or thought that they could make multiple choices. We've already been looking at administratively, how do we communicate this? Because it is a big change for some members, and we'll be communicating it multiple times before the election period in August.
Any follow-up, Senator Nelson?
No, I still have some questions, but they're not exactly related to what this is, why we need to do this today.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. Any further discussion? Seeing that there is no further discussion, Representative O'Driscoll or Senator Westlin, would you like to offer any closing remarks?
I will just offer one beacon of light here. It goes back to what Senator Friend said, that, thankfully we've got the federal government who's overlooking this. And I think the words I'm paraphrasing were, we've avoided a big possible problem. The problem that I hope we also avoid with this, that the commission is dealing with right now, is documentation of people who have selected benefits, and other legislation that's been before this commission. It is my hope that we have documentation that flows rather quickly in this compressed time period, and that we do not have future time in the commission being taken up with, didn't get my waiver, didn't get it documented, and so forth. So I think that's an important thing to get on the record this morning, but that's an important step in the process of what we're doing, particularly with this accelerated time frame.
Thank you. Would you like to renew your motion, Representative O'Driscoll?
Madam Chair, I renewed my motion that House File 4899 as amended be incorporated into the 2024 Omnibus Pension and Retirement Bill.
Thank you. All members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by saying nay? And the motion does prevail, and House File 4899 as amended is recommended to pass and will be incorporated into the Omnibus Pension and Retirement Bill. Our last bill up for the day is from Representative Cha and Senator Rasmusson, adding a defined contribution plan for the PERA Statewide Volunteer Firefighter Plan. I will invite the two of them to come up to the testifiers table. Representative Cha or Senator Rasmusson, would you like to move your bill?
Yes, I'd like to move Senate File 5062 be recommended to pass and incorporate to the Omnibus Pension and Retirement Bill.
Thank you, Representative Cha. Would you like to offer any opening comments on the bill? Senator Rasmusson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate all the work that has been done on this bill by the commission staff, by PERA staff, and also appreciate Representative Cha authoring this bill in the House. Today, volunteer firefighter relief associations can offer a defined contribution or a defined benefit plan for their members. However, the PERA statewide plan does not currently have a defined contribution option. And so that means for relief associations who currently have a defined contribution, they are unable to transfer into the statewide plan. And as a part of last year's pension bill that we passed, we directed commission staff and PERA to work on the language of this bill that is before the commission to fix that issue. And especially with the $5 million incentive program that we have out there for relief associations to consider joining the statewide plan within PERA. We have some defined contribution relief associations who would like to join and take advantage of the incentive plan but are currently unable to. And so the bill before the commission today adds that defined contribution option to the statewide volunteer firefighter plan, and also makes a couple administrative changes that were requested by PERA. And so I'm happy to take any member questions or if our testifiers wanted to add any additional context.
Thank you, Senator Rasmusson. And Director Linchesky, do you have any other details to add to what's been explained?
No, Chair Herr, I'm very happy to just go with Senator Rasmusson's explanation. The bill's a very long bill, very technical. You'll find that there's lots of provisions that have been crossed out. Mainly, they've been moved into other sections, so I was able to sort of reorganize that chapter, working with PERA staff, and any questions, of course, there's just a lot of detail here. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Linchesky. And if we could just have both Mr. Anderson and Ms. Drengy both come up, and so that we can move to member questions after that. I think one of you will be testifying. Please identify yourself for the record and begin.
Thank you, Chair Herr. Doug Anderson, Executive Director for the Public Employee Retirement Association. I want to thank Representative Cha and Senator Rasmusson for their work, and LCPR staff for an incredible amount of work done over the last year on this, and thank you for reflecting the input that PERA has requested. I'm just only going to note that because of the incentive plan, I've had the opportunity to go and talk to a lot of different communities and their fire departments about the potential to come to PERA. And the defined contribution option is fairly intriguing to some of them. Many of these plans have very high funding ratios, and they also have a very high concern about ever having to make a contribution. So we talk about the defined contribution option is something that would allow for excess assets to be allocated to the members, while at the same time eliminating the potential contribution volatility for the township or city. So it's an intriguing option. I think it's a good addition to the SVF plan. So we are supportive of all the provisions in the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Members, any questions? Wow, no member questions. I thought we were going to run late, but now we're going to actually finish earlier. All right.
I'm going to ask a question. I'm usually good for one.
Only if you all want to stay later. All right, thank you, Mr. Anderson and Ms. Drengy.
Thank you.
No, Madam Chair.
Senator Pappas.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment.
Yes.
I just think anytime we can extend opportunities to save for retirement is good. And I think that's why we probably don't have any questions, because this is just a great idea.
Thank you for that comment, Senator Pappas. I agree with you. Representative Cha and Senator Rasmusson, do you have any closing comments?
I just want to thank Senator Rasmusson on his diligent work, on relentless work on this Senate file. And with that, I'd like to renew my motion to Senate File 5062 to be recommended pass, incorporate to the Omnibus Pension and Retirement Bill.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. The motion prevails, and Senate File 5062 is recommended to pass and will be incorporated into the Omnibus Pension and Retirement Bill. That concludes our business for today, members. Our next commission hearing will be on Monday, March 25th. I will note that the following hearing, normally scheduled for the morning of April 1st, falls on our Easter break and has been rescheduled to the evening of Tuesday, April 2nd. Seeing no further business in front of this committee.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Representative
I'm
O'Driscoll.
sorry, the noise was here and I couldn't hear you. April 1st is what?
If we could just maybe quiet down for just a second so our members can hear the announcement. So our normally scheduled commission hearing for April 1st falls on Easter break.
Gotcha.
And so we have been rescheduled to the evening of Tuesday, April 2nd.
And that will be after caucuses for both the House, DFL and GOP?
That is correct. It's whenever that finishes up.
Okay, thank you.
6:30, I think.
Yes, 6:30. So seeing no further business in front of this committee, this meeting is adjourned.